Okay, so welcome to a session, and we are looking at preparation of ethanol. And so this is the formula for ethanol. We know that there are different types of alcohols. We have methanol, we have propanol, we have butanol, but we just want to look at ethanol. So ethanol can be prepared using two methods. The first method is hydration of ethane, and the second one is fermentation of sugars. So what do we mean when we say hydration of ethane? We are looking at the first method now. This method, previously we talked about it. It is a method where we add water to hydrocarbons, for example, alkenes, and particularly ethene. So this is ethene. We add water. It is going to give us an alcohol, which is the ethanol. Ethanol. So that is the first method there. And this is just a structure of ethene, and then water, structure for water, then this is ethanol now. Now, condition for preparing ethanol using this method. 1, the temperature should be about 300 degrees Celsius. Now, it means this is heat. This is a condition. Even in an exam, if they ask you to write the condition for preparing ethanol, temperature should be about 300 degrees Celsius. You need a catalyst. And the catalyst that we use here is phosphoric acid. Then the last condition is pressure. Pressure should be about 65 atp. So that is the conditions. That is the first method. The second method is fermentation of sugars. Now, when you hear about the word fermentation, just know that it's a breaking down of sugars. You break down the sugars using an enzyme in yeast to produce ethanol and carbon dioxide. This is what happens, for example, when you are baking. Flour contains sugars, and then you are going to add yeast there. When you add yeast, an enzyme is going to break the sugars and then form ethanol and carbon dioxide. So how is the process done is sugars is mixed with water and yeast is added, and the reaction is allowed to take place for some time, even days. For you to form ethanol, it has to take days, actually. So now, when you look at this reaction here, it's glucose. Then there's an enzyme being added there. When you add an enzyme there, you form ethanol and the carbon dioxide. And this is a chemical reaction. This is a glucose or sugar. And then it gives us ethanol and carbon dioxide. You need to master this equation. Now, what you should know is that for ethanol to be formed, it should be a sugar or glucose, not starch. So now, remember that, for example, when you have flour has starch in it. So it means that starch has to be converted to glucose. So there are several ways on how to convert starch to glucose or sugar. One of the methods is called the starch hydrolysis. Now, when we say starch hydrolysis, means we're adding water to starch and form glucose. Then there's acid hydrolysis. It means you are adding a dilute acid to starch and then break it to glucose. It is another method that is being used. Another method is enzyme hydrolysis, meaning you are adding an enzyme, and the enzyme mainly added to starch is maltase. Take note of that. Maltase, that is used to break starch into glucose. So if they ask you in an exam, you can mention either of the method that can be used to break down starch into glucose. So you should remember that the enzyme that is used to convert glucose into ethanol and carbon dioxide is a zymase. But the enzyme that is used to convert starch to glucose is maltase. Take note of that. Conditions that are necessary for making alcohol. 1, there must be an optimum temperature of 37. Why? Because it is a temperature at which enzymes work well. When the temperature is beyond this 37, it is beyond 40, probably enzymes won't work and you won't have alcohol. You need also to have a catalyst, which is called the zymase, for alcohol to be formed. The next lesson will look at the physical and chemical characteristics of alcohols.